Hi everyone, morning. Great to have you here on your mat this morning for a yin class that will see us moving and flowing through our pelvis today, so working into the hips. There's a number of different poses where we will need a little bit of support. So beside me you can see I've got my bolster, I've got some blocks, there's some cushions available just over here out of screen, and that's just for me to be able to use to drop into these poses so that I can find a place where I can surrender. Much of our life at the moment has been about giving, and so this practice is a practice for you to be able to take a little bit back. So instead of being the giver of all things to all people in your bubble, being the pillar of your community, the pillar of your bubble, this is about you taking a little bit back to find a little bit of balance. So having said that, we shall start our pose by coming into child's pose. So coming over onto your knees, bring the knees wide to the mat, and right here, right at the very beginning of the practice, give yourself the opportunity to find some support. This is a bolster that's been in my life for many, many years. It's had many different covers on it as it's been loved to death during my life in yoga. It also is a very, very supportive way to find more space into your body. So if you would like to place the bolster down in between the thighs, cushions or blocks that you've got cushions over the top of, or pillows, go get those and then come on down and join me here. We'll take our time through our practice this morning, just finding the space to be able to release, not needing to be any more than just here right now. And this flow, it gets deep into the hip sockets. It can be quite challenging. And so in those moments, just see if you can find the support that you need from your yoga props to allow you to stay. I'm keeping time. For you, this is about the opportunity to be indulgent, just to find a space where you can hold it, feel safe, and where you allow yourself to drop into. And while we're here, holding the pose of child, bring the awareness to the front of your ankles and notice if they're feeling open, spacious. And bring the awareness into the shins that are laying on the earth, your knee joints. Come now into the thighs and the inner thighs. There's a little bit of activity here. And the pelvic bowl, front and back, the outer hips. And now your spine. And as you breathe in, see if you can find more space through each vertebra, each disc. Just tucking the chin gently so you feel a lovely softening through the back of the cervical spine, the back of the neck, and then allowing the lower jaw just to melt. Good. In a moment, we're going to change the experience in this pose and become just a little bit more active. So you may need to bring your hands, walk them back in towards the pelvic bowl as we start to transition into pose tadpole, so a little bit more active through broadening the knees away from each other and just moving softly over the top of your support if you have this here. Bringing the hands down to rest onto the mat to support you, and then just allow the body to experience this transition, this change in the tissues, and the ligaments and the tendons. And as we transition through to pose of the frog, you may need to find a little bit more support for your inner knees. Most of us are in our wonderful, safe environments, our wharis, our houses. You may be on a carpet floor. I then have a mat over that, and I have my yoga mat over the top of that. So I think I'm going to be okay. But just check here, inquire, see how the inner knees are feeling, landing in tadpole. And if you need to have a little bit more support, you may need to roll the mat up in half and maybe into quarters, or perhaps just a couple of blankets under the inner knees. You can stay here. Tadpole is a beautiful place to land, and there's still a lot of activity occurring through the body. However, if you would like to move with me through to frog pose, let's go and do that. So we bring each one of our ankles out in line with our knees. And we rest on the inner ankle, the instep of the foot. We'll do that on both the right and left side of the body. I want to feel really nurtured and supported into my pose this morning, so I'm going to keep the bolster underneath. It's also going to help to support the weight of my pelvis and my torso so that I don't find any compression in my lower back. Just check in once again with the knees and see if you need any support here. And then perhaps you can start to move the pelvis more in line with the knees. I'm keeping time. And see if you can just find a place to drop into with ease. Extended child's pose, tadpole, or if you're with me, into frog pose. And here we just get to watch and observe any emotions that may be coming up as we're working into the pelvic bowl, into the hips. And this is said to be the emotional being within Divine Self. And sometimes it can stir up stuff. And so our job is not to fix it, but to just be the observer in the ebb and flow of the emotions, the feelings. And giving yourself the opportunity to find a space of clearing that doesn't serve you. And it may be just now that you have found so much space in this pose that you may wish to remove the bolster and allow the heart to melt down onto the earth. And this is the joy of being in your practice, your yin practice, being able to take care of, be supported, and nurture in any way that you need to, including changing the position and the posture as and when you need to. In a moment, yogis, it will be time for us to move out of this pose. If you are in frog, unsupported, then just start to bring the hands in underneath the shoulders to lift the body up above the earth. If you are with me, as I am, supported, then the forearms should be on the earth, and you may be able to just bring the heels in together as you tuck the toes, bring the hands back towards the pelvic bowl. Now here, bring the knees in a little closer to rest the inner thighs. Keep the bolster, if you have it, or whatever support you have with you, or not. And then just come on back down into child's pose and rest. Just knowing that at any time in your practice when you need to adjust or modify your pose for your body and for your experience within the pose, please feel free to do that anytime. And if there is a place where you feel overwhelmed and you need to find space, then come into child's pose as we are now. Let this be the reset button. And when you're ready to come and join us once again, come do that. So self-nurture, taking care of yourselves in every way that you need to. Alrighty, come on up with me. Cross the ankles behind you and rolling over onto your buttocks. Shoelace is the next pose that we're going to be moving into. And for some of us, it's a very challenging pose. So there are a number of different opportunities for us to land into it, still giving us the availability of space. One place is just to be where you are in half shoelace with the right leg coming across the left leg long. But you may need to place a bit of support underneath the pelvic bowl. And if you do, go grab a cushion. Nothing too high, because otherwise that tends to drive into the back of the left knee. And you can come take your right foot. There's an external rotation through the pelvis here as you place the outer right knee on the top of your left. And sometimes just there's a lot of tension that lands in the back of the knee joint here. For me, it's okay this morning. Other times it can be a little challenging. So something as little as a little round ball, tennis ball, a cushion, once again, just something to place in underneath here to lessen that intensity. And it's going to give you the wonderful availability of finding space, diving into this pose as you need to. If your neck and shoulders are strong and there's no injuries and you're not having any treatment there, feel free to tuck the chin down for the chest in any one of these poses. If you're suffering a little bit from stiff shoulders, and just be mindful about how that feels. Perhaps keep the chin lifted. Once again, bolsters. These wonderful yoga props can be here, just on the inside of the left ankle, and you may be able to rest your forehead into that. This in turn allows you to soften through the facial features and the lower jaw, through the neck and the shoulders, and still here you're feeling supported. You know, there are times in your days, I'm sure, of late, where you have been so much to so many different people, whether that is virtual, whether that's by telephone, or whether that is in person. Ka nohi ki te ka nohi. But it is exhausting. And sometimes the one person we forget to give time and space to is the one that needs it the most. And that's you. And this practice is for you. Let's be a little indulgent. So there are a lot of opportunities to be in this pose. And I'm going to change my experience here. You may wish to as well. I'm just going to pop the little ball off to the side of the mat once again and come into full shoelace by bringing my left foot to hug into the outside of my right hip. So around it comes. Both sit bones on the mat, that's the deal. Both sit bones into the earth. And again, if you need a little bit of support to lift up, which is going to take the intensity out of the hips, the knees, and maybe the fronts of the sides of the ankles for you, then please explore that possibility so you can be in the very best example, very best position in this pose so that you can find that wonderful place to just reap the rewards of being here. Again, the bolster can be here for you to land into, because each one of our bodies is so uniquely different in how we move, the injuries that we may have sustained, the rotations around the sun that we've existed in this world for. So for each one of us, this will look and feel uniquely ours. Come on forward if you would like to. And just stay with me here. Hold the space. And so, just for these last few moments, maybe adjusting the position. You can bring the feet a little closer if you need to be a little less. Indeed, you can take them a little broader if you have wonderful, spacious hips. Whatever the body is able to give you just now, we're here for about another minute. Let's see if you can just stay there. Enjoy this wonderful moment with self. But naturally, if this is a struggle to stay in the pose, if the body is tightening instead of releasing, then that's your indication that you've gone a little too far, and perhaps you need to investigate the possibility of being just a little less. See how the body responds to that offering, and then perhaps it may give you the space to land more deeper into the body. In a moment, yogis will transition into swan pose on the left. You may feel a little imbalanced, but we'll come back and do the other side, I promise. So come on up. Very gently just rock off to the left side. You're sweeping the right leg behind. And again, you may need some yoga support here to place it underneath your left thigh. So we go and find that. We place ourselves in the very best experience that we can find in Swan. And please indulge me for a little while and stay in your hands. Allow the body, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles, indeed even the emotions and the breath, settle and land into this transition before we move. And once again, your bolster can be a friend, a wonderful place of support for you in this pose as well. So keep it handy, keep it close. And when you're ready, come on down into Sleeping Swan. So Sleeping Swan can be where you allow the torso to lay gently upon Papato Noku, if you can get there comfortably without there being any sense of struggle, or where you are still releasing and not tightening through the muscular body, and go there. Otherwise, take the time to feel this wonderful support in underneath you. So the bolster just hugs into the front shin on the left side. And then you have this place to land where there's a little bit more space perhaps for you. Some days you need more space than others. This could be that day. Or you may have chosen to have taken the offering of being in a place of self-nurture, of being in a place where you are supported, in turn allowing yourself to investigate the possibilities that are in those poses for you. Sometimes we try so hard to be so much that we miss that place to land. Good. Now, do you need to adjust or modify anywhere here to be able to release and drop into this pose more? Do you need to adjust or modify somewhere to find ease and perhaps an ankle or your knee? Do you need more support into the torso? Or is it simply that you need to give yourself permission to be here? In a moment, it will be time to be able to have the opportunity to transition into another variation of a swan pose. If this is enough for you, then recognize that and take care of yourself, nurture yourself by staying supported or unsupported. If, however, you would like to move into another place, square pose is offered here. Just rolling off the left side, bring the right leg forward. Keep the bolster handy once again. And then we bring both shins level to the front of the mat. If this is too strong for you, feel free to come into Shukrasana, cross-leg pose, the right shin in front of the left. Otherwise, into the offering square we go. And if you need some support once again underneath the outer right knee, then please go and get that. And then as time passes, you may notice that the body will soften and give. There'll be a space where you can land into. But if the body also doesn't find that space, then know that you're taking care of yourself, giving yourself the space to stay where you are. Either way, land into your pose. The bolster, a wonderful way to take care of the upper body, just to take that engagement away from yourself. Facial features and lower jaw soft. Neck and shoulders are relaxed. Similarly, you may find that you have space to come forward a little more. Each one of us being where our body allows us to be. Okay, wherever we are, come on up. Bring the hands behind you, fingertips towards the buttocks or away. You'll figure out where that is more comfortable for you. Let's just roll through our ankles. These poses that we've just visited can be quite demanding of these joints. And then place the feet down 6 inches ahead of the knees or a little further, just to the outside edges of the hips. And then with your breath, we simply roll from side to side. So not moving too quickly, just finding that wonderful spaciousness, the release that is there for you to find in these poses. And of course, we did one side of the body, and so now we need to go and find the other. Setting up for shoelace, half shoelace. Left leg comes across the top of the right this time, that is long. We'll all start there. Come on into this pose by bringing the left foot to the outside of the right thigh. Again, if there's a little bit too much activity behind this knee, pop a little bit of support in there. Similarly, if you need to sit the pelvis up so that you feel more spacious and balanced, then please go and do that, but not too high. Just a little bit of an elevation there so the pelvic bowl can just tilt slightly. You might be able to just fold forward with or without the support. Let's go and see how that could look and feel on this side. Check the outer left ankle. If you're starting to roll too heavily into it with too much weight, then just tip the toes, flex the toes up towards your left knee, and you'll feel that stability around that joint. Give you a little bit more support. While we're here in a half shoelace, again, use the bolster on an angle to support the forehead so that you can truly drop into this through the upper body. And here we stay. And we know that there are offerings in this pose. Sometimes the greatest offering that we can bring to any asana is that of time. Patience and time. Good, checking in. And then you may wish to come into full shoelace, right foot outside of the left hip. Again, keep the bolster handy, not necessarily just to rest the forehead into, but you may wish to place it in the front of your knees so that you can place the forearms on to land into it in that way. If you don't suffer separation anxiety by having the feet hugging into the outside of the hips, if they need to be there, keep them there. But if you are able to start to investigate, just test the waters like you would before you have a bath, too hot, too cold. How does it feel moving these legs away a little bit from the sides of your hips? Good. Just feel this on the outer hips. And start to see if you can really notice internally the internal landscape just now. Just notice exactly that place where you are feeling it the very most. So in this moment right now, that place that you're feeling it the very most, I'm going to come back and ask you that question in a few more moments. So as time passes, is it the same place, or has the experience in that part of your tissues changed? Good. Wherever your pose needs to take you to, go land there for these last few moments in this pose of shoelace. It's not wanting to be any more than you need to be just here, with a wonderful sense of accepting whatever is given. In a moment, it's going to be time to transition into swan pose with the right leg forward and sweeping the left leg back. As and when, yogis, come on up with me, slowly and gently. Just taking the left leg back. Find any support that you need here. Come and land. There you are. Once again, the bolster can be there if you would like it to be, to support yourself. As we know, we're going to move into sleeping swan at some stage, but just now indulge me, if you will, once again, and stay here. Check in with the joints, check in with the knees, the hips, and the ankle on the right side. So if you need to point these toes or change the position to lessen any activity through these joints, feel free to do that. That then becomes the pose that gives you the very best opportunity to find the space. When we find a space where we're not being challenged physically, emotionally, or mentally, and that's where we find the space gives us the opportunity to just kind of like check out of the intensity of life. So not escaping, but just giving yourself some time out. You've got to find that balance through everything else first. Alrighty. Come on down with me to the mat. You can use the bolster if you would like to, or not. Each one of us will figure this out. Good, now just checking in. Are you still in a place of ease? Or have you noticed that the muscles are still tightening? If they haven't softened off, you may need to come up and find some support underneath your torso. You may need to come back up into your hands and adjust the support that is underneath your outer right thigh. Or indeed, you may need to come out of the pose and rest in child's pose. And once again, there is the offering to come into square. You don't need to be there. This could be the offering that you need to give to yourself in this sequence at this time. However, you want to come through to square with me. Come on up into the hands once again. Roll off to the right side. Move any support that you have around or under the body until we set up to come into either Shukrasana, left shin in the front, or square pose, left shin on top. Once again, bolster to support the forehead. The bolster can be there to place the forearms on if you can reach forward that far. But just stay for a moment, figure out how this transition is landing. It's a very strong pose. For each one of us, we make it look and feel as we need it to. Your yoga practice is as unique to your body as your thumbprint. There's no two that are identical, nor is there two practices that are identical. There will be a shift, a change, an acceptance, an emotional challenge or release. There could be damage in one side of the body, a hamstring and not the other. And so it's impossible for us to be absolutely the same. And so based on that, we give ourselves the opportunity to find exactly what is our place to land. The uniqueness of being yourself and your practice, and adopting and modifying the practice to be that for you. It's time, yogis, to come on up. Bring the hands behind the pelvis once again. Come rock into the back of the pelvic bone and just roll through the ankles. Give these joints a little bit of mobility. I've been very active in these poses for you. Cool. Feet into the earth as they were before. And then just window wipers to the right and left side of your body. Let's continue in a couple on each side. So don't rush through these. Just allow the breath to initiate the movement from the right to left side and stay on each side as long as your out breath or your in breath allows you to. Good. So just crossing the legs at the front of the mat. Breathe in, lengthen up through the crown of the head. And as you exhale, left hand to the outside of the right knee, right hand behind. Let's take a twist. Good, come back center with me here. Just roll back onto the back of the pelvis once again, switch the legs around the other way. There you go. And then as you exhale, take a twist to the opposite direction. Come back with me to center. Good. And then this time, we're going to roll over onto your hands and your knees. And continue lengthening the legs to the back of the room and grabbing hold of your bolster if you would like to or not. We're going to be moving into Sphinx and Seal pose, and you'll have the wonderful joy of investigating the possibilities of being in either or transitioning through each one as and when you need to. This morning, I'm going to place my bolster underneath my lower ribs, and that holds me in a space between the two. So not quite Sphinx pose, but not quite Seal pose, but it also gives me the opportunity of removing a little bit of weight out of the front of my shoulders. So you may wish to do this as well. Test the waters, come land down onto the mat, and then find your place to be in space. Extension through spine is one of my favorite places to be, but also one that I struggle with. It's really important that our friends in yoga that come to our classes, that spend time with us in studios or online, are aware that we are human. That we too have experienced, or still are experiencing, the same challenges that you may be or that you will. We fall over, we lose balance, we have more access in parts of our bodies than all of it and others. We get injured, just as other people do. We are the same. We have our limitations in some poses. We have an extreme amount of access in others. And so just as you need to, we adjust and modify to be the very best we can be in our poses. Where the breath is easy and the mind is still, able to look behind the mental activity of the mind, to sit on the other side of all of that busyness. Now you may wish to come into seal pose, where you'll just turn the hands out 45 degrees, lengthen through the arms. And again, I'm pretty close to seal here, but I don't have as much weight through the front of my chest as I would normally have. It's a lovely way to still be in an extension, feel nurtured and supported. So come back down to Sphinx whenever you need to, come up into Seal whenever that calls you. But just now I'm also going to add a little bit more activity to the outside of my pelvis on the right side by inviting my right knee to come out to the side of the room, only 90 degrees, so no higher than my hip point, in exactly the same fashion as it was in frog. You may wish to be there with me, come and join me. You may wish to stay in Sphinx or Seal, transitioning between the two, or staying and holding space or one. Welcoming the release that lands around the back of the pelvic bowl as time passes. The spaciousness through the inner thigh and the inner pelvic bowl on the right side. And now, yogis, it's time to slowly take the right leg to the back of the room once again. You may be able to rock through the pelvis, or you may just need to stay and take a breath in, perhaps extend to be more, or soften down to be less. Come with me to the other side. If you took the right, left knee comes out. Set up the pose for where you can find the most space, the most acceptance, and samatva, the concept of equilibrium and balance. And here we stay. And even here, noticing the breath can change the experience and the pose from the activity in the mind through to the sting of the emotions, through to the extension on the in-breath, through the tissues in the body, through to that wonderful sense of release, softening on the out-breath. Good. So embracing the softening that may have landed, hopefully it has for you, through the back of the pelvis, through the inner pelvic bowl, the inner thigh. Take a breath in. Come with me now, 2 legs to the back of the room. Good. If you were not in Sphinx pose, then come and land there. Beautiful. And then as we breathe in, just bring the hands in underneath the shoulders. If you have a bolster, keep it there. We'll use it to help extend as we press back into child's pose. Roll the hands over the bolster and allow the chest to drip to the earth. Alrighty, come on up. The next place that we'll land into is a place called saddle. And saddle can be really challenging for a lot of people. But there are so many different places that we can land in saddle. We'll go through and see if we can find a place for you to land where you can still find this place of nurture. Bolster, blankets, pillows, cushions, whatever you can find, go and find those. Come onto your knees and bring your feet to the sides of the mat. Now you may need to just here, straight away here, land onto the bolster underneath the pelvis. That opens up the space through the front of the ankles or space through the joint of the knee and a little softer through the pelvic bowl. Most of all, as we grow this pose, it's not going to be quite so demanding of you through the front of your quadriceps. So you can stay here, then come on back, landing into the hands. Good. Keep the chin tucked so that you're not straining through the neck. Or you may be able to just sit down onto the earth. Have the bolster still there if you'd like to, because you may need a little bit of support to land into as you start to recline backwards. So the bolster's just snuggled into my lumbar spine, right in there, at the base of my buttocks, hugging right in. And then from here, I'm going to put my hands behind. I'll need to lift the pelvis up just to adjust the inner thighs. It's very subtle, but it will help just to take a little bit of tensity out of the lumbar spine. Then come on back onto the bolster. And this may be where you get to experience saddle. If you need to be a little bit more, if you need the pose to be more invigorating, then you can come down to saddle unsupported. Bring the hands behind. Just test the waters. Come down onto the forearms first. Adjust the pelvis as we did earlier. And then you may be able to come all the way down. Either way, the pose will be able to give you somewhere to land. Similarly, if you are on the bolster, you can also elevate the end of it up so you can lean back into it. So you're not having to hold the neck and shoulders or through the palms of the hands to stay there. Wherever you are, just see if you can stay here for a very short period of time and use the breath to open up release, and soften through the tissues. And your muscles, often when we're in moments of stress and anxiety and overwhelm, or where we're in fatigue, the muscles too respond and react to that emotional position or location that we are in for any given day. It's really important that we understand that there is an effect that lands in them. And your yin practice can be the counterpose to however your body is reacting or how it's responding to this very challenging time in our lives at the moment. Becomes the gift, becomes the balance, allows you to find release, allows you to take care of yourself on a much deeper level. Let's just find a little bit of space, a little bit of stillness. Probably got about another minute or so here. And this is quite a strong pose to be in. You've been here for some time. So before we start to transition out of this pose, just bring the awareness to being back here again. Get the mind active to helping to figure out, as we talk each other through, how to come out of this pose. If you've come down to the earth, bring the forearms to the earth and start to press into the forearms, and then walk into each side of your hands and come on up. Really important here that you just lift the pelvis up and let the spinal column and the pelvic bowl realign itself to where it needs to be. Please just stay here. Don't run away from this bind through the legs too quickly. If you are restorative, then again, just coming up to sit with us here. You may still have the bolster either under the buttocks or snuggled in behind you. Alrighty, come on forward very slowly. Take some time to release through this pose. Just stretch the right and the left leg back to lengthen through the leg. Get a little bit of activity into the knee joint as well. Good. And now coming out of our knees, we're going to spend a moment in dragon. So from here, just bringing your right foot forward. You'll see me move my bolster. Bringing the right ankle in line with the right knee. Now the bolster can come and snuggle into the front of my left thigh, which then gives my thigh the opportunity to land into that bolster. So it's taking away a lot of intensity for me. Yes, I can be deeper, but today I too choose to be in a nurturing, supportive position. I too, like other people, have had a constant energy exchange. Sometimes I just need to refill up my cup. And this yin practice is giving me that opportunity. So I don't need to be more than being here. And similarly, if you are feeling that you need to be more than where you are just now, then that is your journey. If you need to be a little bit more energetic in these poses, the asanas that have been offered that I'm offering to you now, then please go and be that person. Sometimes the self-nurturing is also about needing to burn things off, just to release. And that may also require you to be a little bit more active in the poses to enable that to occur. And somewhere else we can land here. You can stay where you are, being supported, or bring both hands to the inside of your right foot and just walk that out wide enough so that it's comfortable for you. Turn the foot out just a fraction. We're not going to lift the toes up or roll into the outside edge. Rather, we're going to drop down over the bolster. Just tuck into the inside of the right thigh. And once again, if you would like to go externally rotated on the right side, then just lift the toes up to support the joint and move the weight to the outside edge of the foot. The external rotation comes from the pelvic bowl, so we try to keep the ankle joint as stable as we possibly can. And once again, this is a deep pose to be in. You're asking a lot of yourself. So before we transition, which we will in just a moment, start to bring the awareness to being back into the pose once again. And then come with me out of this pose by firstly bringing the hands down and underneath each shoulder. There you go. Walk the right foot back in line. And then very slowly just bring your right foot behind and pop down into child's pose. This is just for a breath or two. And then as and when you're ready, roll the bolster off to the other side of the mat. Come on up into the knees. Step the left foot forward. Be mindful that the knee and ankle are in line here. Snuggle the bolster up into the front of the right thigh so that you can land into that. And here we are on the left side. Good. Here's the invitation to be a little more if you would like to be, or just to stay where you are. Sometimes in my yin practice, that's the hardest part, this decision. Then come on down. You don't need to be any more than just here. If you would like the external rotation, once again, lift these left toes up and then roll into the outside edge of your left foot. You may have noticed I've had to roll the bolster underneath the right side of my body along with me, as when I went this way, the balance shifted. So you'll adjust or modify with the yoga props that you have with you anytime, as and when. Good. Can you hold the space for yourself for just a few more moments? Amazing. Come on up with me. Just as we landed in, so too do we come out. Good. Come on back. And as you come back, place the bolster, your blankets or your cushions across the width of your mat. Then come on over onto your buttocks and then place your knees over the top of said bolster or blankets or blocks or pillows. And come roll down to the mat with me here. Bring your feet to the bolster as wide to each side as is possible. And then from here, just to let the knees drop to the right side. Now here, you may need some support on your outer right knee in the form of push, puff, anything that you've got handy. And then here we will stay for a couple more breaths. So just laying down, I would lay down, but you're going to lose my voice as the microphone gets a bit crackly. But you just stay there. Yogis, breathe in and bring the knees back center. Press into the soles of the feet and lift the pelvis up. Roll the pelvis back down to the earth. Keeping the feet wide onto your bolster. Take them to the left side. Once again, just pop something in underneath your outer left knee if you need to. On the right side. Good, and then come on back center once again. Lift the pelvis up just to realign, just in case we need to find a little bit more space. Now it's time to come into your Shavasana. Bring your feet over the top of your bolster. And get this lovely shape with bent knees, soft through the back of the pelvic bowl. To give you as much space as you can to land into your Shavasana, place of the deepest opportunity just to truly surrender, like really let go and really go to a place of rest where you can self-nurture, where you can do all the R things, I call it rest, restore, relax, rejuvenate, all of those things, reset. Your parasympathetic nervous system is now relaxed. This is the opportunity for you to reset your body so that you are that amazing person that we all know you to be, the pillar of your bubble. You're ready to go and embrace whatever the following week brings us. Stay in your Shavasana, yogis, just as long as you would like to. It's been my pleasure to be with you here on this Sunday, in this wonderful moment of taking care of ourselves in our yin practice. Thank you for inviting me into your whare, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Namaste.